I can see only about 18 or 19 people have joined so far, although we are required to start at 10:30 sharp. Whether I am doing the session or someone else is joining doing the session, I would suggest that you be ready to join the class at the right time. Punctuality is an important thing for a banker. So with that note, let us start, and let me introduce myself to all of you. My name is Nimal Lakshman. I worked at the Commercial Bank of Ceylon. I joined in 1974. Most of you were not even born at that time. I worked my way up by working in several departments, working for several bosses, and doing my banking examinations, which you will also be doing in a couple of months' time. And I retired in 2014 as the Deputy General Manager, Management Audit of the bank. Thereafter, I joined a finance company called Siyapatha Finance PLC, owned by 100% owned by the Sampat Bank. Then I worked there for about 4 years and 4 months. In 2019 March, my contract came to an end. Then I stayed at home for about a year and started working once again from the 1st of this month in another finance company, which is the Richard Peary's Finance Company. So that's about my background. I have been mostly working in the credit department when I was in the bank. Preparing credit appraisal forms, granting approval for credit appraisal forms, and getting various documents before granting facilities has been what I have been doing most of my banking career. Then thereafter, I have been, as an auditor, I have been visiting branches both locally and abroad. Abroad means in Bangladesh, where the commercial bank had about 17 branches, to do auditing. Now, in auditing, having done auditing, I have seen in certain banks as well as in finance companies, sometimes people do not do what they are expected to do. Now, what we are trying to discuss today is something very important, because you are dealing with customers. When a customer comes to the bank, you are not just going to accept him, right? Because we have a responsibility to know the customer with whom we are dealing. Otherwise, we will not be following the regulations that have been laid down by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. Central Bank of Sri Lanka has certain very strict regulations with regard to dealing with customers. So today's discussion is about knowing your customer and anti-money laundering. Now, knowing your customer, if you do not know your customer, you will be knowingly or unknowingly getting involved in money laundering. So let's see what we have to what we have in the presentations. I believe you have gone through the presentation at least once. Anytime during this session, you can stop me and ask any question that you would like to ask. In between the session, it doesn't matter you're stopping me if you are not clear about something. I have made the presentation a very simple one, knowing that some of you are soon after school, leaving school. Therefore, I have not used any difficult terminology and all that. Everything, and I believe, can be understood. That is why I say, please stop me anytime during the session. I'll be drinking water while I do the session. Any question up to now for anyone? Are there any questions for you to ask? Can I hear someone saying no at least? Can someone unmute the mic and speak and say no questions? Can you at least can someone say whether you are listening, you are hearing me well? No, sir, no question for me at the moment. Thank you very much. Right, let's go to the presentation now. Right, as I told you, we are going to discuss about the guidelines Central Bank of Sri Lanka has issued to banks and also finance companies on 4 matters. AML. Now, as I told you, AML, the abbreviation stands for anti-money laundering. You would have seen, if you have read my presentation and the handout I have issued, by now you must be knowing what these terms are. KYC stands, as you know, for Know Your Customer. CDD is customer due diligence, right? I have given the definitions here, customer due diligence, and the last one is CFT, countering the financing of terrorism. So these are the 4 matters that we are discussing today. Now we'll start with anti-money laundering. Now you are familiar with the word laundry, right? That is, you clean something. You give it to the laundry, you say, I have given my shirt to the laundry. What does the laundry do? Some dirt that is there in your shirt or frock or whatever, they will take it and use certain chemicals and clean it. Now here we are discussing money laundering. How can you launder money? Is it taking a note and cleaning it? No. Let's get to know what that is. Now there's a definition. Definition means the meaning. Now this says it is a process of converting cash, not only cash, property as well, derived from criminal activities. If you have a printout of your note, kindly underline the word criminal activities to give it a legitimate appearance. That means if you want to give something legitimate appearance, that means it is illegal something. So you are trying to convert something illegal to look as if it is legal, right? So in short, it is a process to clean dirty money in order to disguise its criminal origin. Now this money has come from some criminal activity. You are trying to clean it and make it look as if it is, the money has come from legal sources. So the next bullet point is the process of criminal proceeds. Proceeds means the money itself. Criminal proceeds. Okay, let's say you have, now we are always talking about narcotics, drugs and all that in the news, right? Now you know that drugs are being sold, and that money is proceeds of sale of drugs. Proceeds is you have converted something from something else, so the drugs have been converted to money. So now money is proceeds of sale of drugs. So it's an illegal activity, right? From that, people earn profits and benefits in order to, they are knowing very well that they are doing something wrong, right? The money that you get by doing wrong things, you can't keep. You must make it look like you have done something legal and that money has come to your hands. Then the next bullet point is, it says concealing. Concealing means you try to cover it. Conceal. When you conceal, the other party can't see it. That is the meaning of concealing. Or converting a property or its proceeds knowingly or believing that the property was derived from the commission of an offense, which we call it a predicate offense. Now we have gone through the definition. Is there anything that you did not understand in the definition? Are there any questions before we go to the next slide? Can I go to the next slide? Can someone else type and say, yes, can go to the next slide? No one is willing to type and let me go to the next slide. Or can someone say, we'll proceed? Okay, I presume that there's no questions. If you don't interrupt me and ask me questions, I presume there are no questions. Then we go to the next one, CFT, right? Countering of financing terrorism, right? The definition of terrorist financing is the act of providing. You give financial support. Financial support means you give money, you provide money funded from either legitimate means legal, or illegitimate sources, illegal, to terrorists or terrorist organizations. Then the next one is providing funds for terrorism activities. right? And terrorist organizations. Once again, it says that money may have come from legitimate sources or criminal sources. That is very straightforward. It's right. I have given at the end of this PowerPoint presentation a page, a useful article on KYC and CDD. Now, this is an article written by a banker known to me, who worked with me in the bank, commercial bank, right? If you go to this you will get a lot of information about money laundering, right? How it happens globally. There are phases of money laundering. There are certain steps, placement, layering, and integration, which is given in this, right? Here, placing, collecting dirty money, placing, layering, that means transferring the money through banks and making it look like legal money. This is an article which has been very nicely written for anyone to understand. So I would suggest that you go through that article. So what is placement? Now you must know the 3 steps that are involved, 3 stages that are involved in money laundering. First one is placement. Placement means you deposit, right, the cash. Or if you don't deposit the cash in your own country, what you do is you find ways and means of transferring it to another country. Okay, there are certain countries which are not bound by this anti-money laundering regulations. You may have heard that certain politicians of our country also have gone and deposited their money in other countries. You may have heard. Right. The second stage is layering of funds. Layering of funds means you send that money, right, using various forms. Now, one of the ways to send money is to do a wire transfer. Okay. Then sometimes you don't go and put the money in one whole bulk. You make it into small parcels or small amounts. You have 1 million, you make it 100,000 each, 10 into 100,000, 1 million. So you deposit in various places those 100,000s, right? Or else what you do is you deposit the money to accounts of other people who already have opened accounts, right? You know that their bankers will not ask them any question about how they got that money. So you give that money to someone, say, okay, you put this money in your account, I will ask when I want it, right? So that is layering. Wire transfer means one of the fastest methods of transferring money. you call them telegraphic transfers also, right? You make the transfer now, immediately it is received by another person in another country. At the same time, on online, real time, right? In Sri Lanka, it is not easy to do wire transfers because we are bound by exchange control regulations. Central Bank has a department called Exchange Control Department, which permits only certain types of money to be sent abroad. For instance, someone who has a son or daughter abroad studying in a university, the central bank will say, you can remit money, you call it remit also, sending abroad, right? You call it remitting money. So you can remit money for your son or daughter for his education. The tuition fees must go to the university, in the name of the university. So you go to the bank and say, I want to remit to the such and such university my son's tuition fees. Please make a telegraphic transfer. The bank accepts the money from the customer through rupees, in rupees, and depending on the country where the child is studying, in America, they will send a US dollar telegraphic transfer. It is received by that bank over there at the same time. If you do it now, it will go maybe in the night in the US at the same time. So that is a kind of a wire transfer. So those are permitted only for certain purposes. The money can be sent because central bank does not allow you to send money for each and everything. Right. Then the third stage is integration. Right? Integration means now it is getting into the system. Right? Investing in financial instruments, right? Oils, you go and buy some luxury goods. There are people who buy gems, jewelry, or maybe property, apartment, or estates or whatever. Oils, they will invest this money in business. So those are the three stages of money laundering, which is shown in the next slide. This is the typical money laundering scheme. You can see here, this is the dirty money. We talked about placement, right? It enters into the financial system through a bank, right? From that bank, you ask the bank for a wire transfer to be carried out, right? Wire transfer funds between various offshore accounts or whatever, right? Offshore means overseas. Then it gets integrated, as we discussed, by purchasing luxury assets, financial investments, commercial or industrial investments. I believe it is understood the stages. You may be asked sometimes, as a question, what are the three stages of anti-money laundering, way the money can be laundered. So if that question is asked, you should be able to tell that it is through placement, right? That is entering of dirty money into the banking system. Then layering. Layering means the transfer of funds between various banks, right? From one bank to another. Then integration, that money being used to buy properties or luxury goods. Okay. Now in the world, there are certain institutions which are there to stop this money laundering business and terrorist financing. The one that is most powerful is the Financial Action Task Force. So we will get to know how Financial Action Task Force put Sri Lanka into a bit of a problem, right? In 2016 or so, or 2017, there is what is known as a grey list, right? The article that I showed you at the bottom of this slide, the presentation, you look at that article, you will find that Sri Lanka has been branded as a country where money laundering is taking place in a big way. So there is a something called a grey list, which has been put out by this Financial Action Task Force. Luckily, in November last year, Sri Lanka was removed from that list. Right. Then the other thing is this Asia Pacific group of money laundering. There's another one, Egmont Group of Financial Intelligence Units, or which is known as Egmont Group. And there are certain other institutions like the World Bank. You have heard about World Bank. Maybe you have heard about the International Monetary Fund, right? You will not be asked to give the list of the institutions which are there to combat money laundering, but you should at least know this Financial Action Task Force and things like the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. Then there are other things like United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, United Nations Security Council, and also Office of Foreign Assets Control. Can I ask whether there are any questions on these things before I talk about this? Any questions? Or can someone say no questions and type it so that I can see it? Or can someone unmute the mic and say no questions? When doing this online teaching, this is the disadvantage. If you were seated in a classroom, I would have pointed the finger at somebody and asked, did you understand? But I can't do it here. Can someone please write and say no questions? Until I see that note on screen, can I hold on?
Sir,
Yes.
how can we identify dirty money?
Sorry?
How can we identify dirty money?
Dirty money, you cannot identify unless you know who that customer is, what his business is, right? It is very difficult. Now, in banks, it's a good question that you're asking. In banks, what banks do is, if someone who doesn't have an account of his or her in a bank comes and deposits money to another person's account, I suggest that all of you go to a bank tomorrow if you have the time and ask for a deposit slip. Unfortunately, I did not bring a deposit slip. In the deposit slip, if say you are depositing money to my account, and if the amount is more than 200,000, you have to give your particulars and say from where you got this money. And the bank will question you, okay, as to how you got this money. It's very difficult to identify whether this money is coming from legal activities or illegal activities, right? That is why we come to later know your customer. When we know the customer, we know what his or her business is. And when he suddenly brings a big amount of money, right, we become a bit suspicious. And we will, until we are satisfied, we will question that person. Ask him for evidence. If he says, no, I sold this money, I got this money by selling a property. Then you can say who bought the property. You can say, can you show me the deed, a copy of the deed that was written or whatever, right? So there are various ways of finding out whether the money is dirty money. Now, generally banks don't. If they know that a person is a drug dealer, a bank will not open an account for him. You would have heard in the news that certain accounts through which all this narcotic money has gone through have been detected, right? So sometimes those banks may have been negligent at the time of opening the account, or else those people would not have been involved in dealing in drugs at that time, at the time the account was opened. But when large amounts started coming into the account, the bank is required to question the customer. From where are you getting this money? When we go to this, the things that are involved in this FIU or Financial Intelligence Unit of the central bank, we will come to know. Have I answered that question to your satisfaction?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Right, okay. Are there any other questions by anyone else? Right. Okay, now Financial Action Task Force, I told you that's a very powerful organization. They made a recommendation. Recommendation number 29. And they said that countries must establish a financial intelligence unit. This is like the CID, Criminal Investigations Department, like that. You have to set up a financial intelligence unit. It's a national requirement. Each country have to do it. If you want to be called a country where money laundering does not take place, you will have to have a strong financial intelligence unit, right? Now, their job is to see whether there are any suspicious transactions, right? And also to collect information relating to money laundering and terrorist financing. Okay, now there was a time when somebody gets anything more than 1 million rupees. At that time, I'm talking about the 1980s. You have to get the central bank's approval before you credit that money to an account, because central bank can ask questions. Okay. So the Financial Action Task Force was established in 1989 by the group of 7 countries, right? As a global policy setter for anti-money laundering and countering the financing of terrorism. I think this is understood well. Right. Let's go to the next slide. Any questions on this slide? No? Right. Okay, let's move on to the next one, where we discuss this Financial Intelligence Unit. Now, in Sri Lanka, in order to implement the recommendation by the Financial Transactions Reporting Act, which was established in 2006. In Sri Lanka also they established a financial intelligence unit, right, in March 2006. Now FIU, or the Financial Intelligence Unit, is the authority which is responsible to implement various rules and regulations to stop money laundering and terrorist financing and various other crimes in Sri Lanka, right? In order to meet the international standards that the Transactions Reporting Act is talking about, right? Financial Actions Task Force, which we talked about earlier. This is what they wanted the countries to do, recommendation number 29. So we also have Sri Lanka also did what they wanted. Now, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka is where you get this financial intelligence unit operating. Okay, there is a unit called the Financial Intelligence Unit under the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. Let's see what they are expected to do. Now the Financial Intelligence Unit is established or was established under these three rules, right? Convention on Suppression of Terrorist Financing Act, the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, and the Financial Transactions Reporting Act. Now, this is important. Financial transactions reporting, right? The banks have to do this. Now, let's go to how this happens in banks, right? Now, one of the things that the central bank direction issued by the Financial Intelligence Unit, they expect all the banks to have a code of conduct, right? It is also known as the customer charter. If you have the handout, or if you can highlight this phrase customer charter. Now this customer charter is something that each bank has to have. I would recommend that you go to a bank website, because the bank website has to display its customer charter. Okay, if you go to any bank website and see what this customer charter is. It will say what the bank would do and what the bank will not do. So it basically tells the standards and the good things bank is doing, right? And the good things the bank would expect the customer to do when they interact with the bank or when they undertake a transaction with the bank, right? So as this says, customer charter sets key standards for fair banking practices expected by customers when they undertake transactions with banks, and provides guidance to banks to adopt a code of conduct for customer protection. Now this code of conduct is there to protect the customers. Okay. Any questions on this? Are there any questions on this, or can we proceed? I would like questions being asked now. The earlier question, now that question was an important question, which is not in the slide. So if you have any doubt, please ask. Right? Now comes the powers and functions of the FIU, Financial Intelligence Unit of Sri Lanka, which is, as I told you, it is in the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. Okay. Now they have given certain instructions to banks. Now instructions are going to banks by way of a circular. In Sinhala you say Chakraleka, right? So the central bank from time to time issue instructions. Now the central bank, if you go to the central bank website, all the instructions that they have given from time to time to banks are there. You can very easily go to that website and read the section on this Financial Intelligence Unit. Okay. So they collect information and they receive this information from banks. They analyze this information, data and the reports that the banks are sending. Then disseminating information to law enforcement authorities. Disseminating means you give information, right? Law enforcement authorities, maybe it may be the CID, it may be the police, it may be some other legal, maybe the Attorney General's department, right? When they receive this information and if they are asked to provide by the law enforcement authority, the central bank will have to give that information. Then when they go to banks for examinations, the central bank will visit banks from time to time. Okay. There is a team, there is a department called the Bank Supervision Department. The Bank Supervision Department has quite a lot of officers. From time to time, they go to various banks. So when they go to banks, they do an examination as to how that bank is, the steps that the bank has taken in regard to anti-money laundering and countering the financing of terrorism. Okay. Then they issue rules and regulations and guidelines, right? As and when they think that something is going wrong, they will issue guideline. Don't do this. Or they will say, okay, this regulation that we are given some time ago with regard to anti-money laundering is no longer applicable. Now it is outdated. Therefore, we delete that section and introduce a new section. Okay. Then imposing sanctions to enforce compliance. If the banks do not comply, the central bank has the power to impose certain sanctions. Sometimes they will say, no, until you do this properly, we will not allow you to open branches. So there is some thing that the central bank sometimes do when the banks or finance companies, they don't comply with certain rules and regulations. They say, no, you can't open any more branches, or else you can't grant advances, or you can't accept deposits. Like that, they will enforce regulation. Then exchanging of information with counterpart FIUs. Counterpart means the other countries also have financial intelligence units. Now the Reserve Bank of India or Federal Reserve Bank of the United States also will have this FIU. So if our central bank, the FIU, if they want, they can exchange information. They send our information to them and maybe ask some information from them. So it will depend on the understanding between the two financial intelligence unit. It is very important, right? Now to get information from various other countries, it is not easy, right? So there are certain rules and regulations covering exchange of information. Sometimes that information is very useful if you want to take action against, legal action against somebody. The importance of anti-money laundering is what we are going to discuss now. Right now, this has been identified as a important or a key aspect in the financial industry all over the world. Okay, I told you about a grey list earlier. In 2016, we were placed in this grey list. Yes, because the Financial Action Task Force, they found that we were not doing what we were expected to do in a proper way. There were deficiencies, in other words, in our anti-money laundering procedures. So they put us into the grey list. Grey list means you are bad. That's about all. So Sri Lanka was in the grey list of Financial Action Task Force, and there's another list called the blacklist in the European Union. We were in these two lists about about 4 years ago, 2016. Luckily for us, the central bank set up new rules and regulations. They strengthened the process of anti-money laundering, and as a result, we were removed from the grey list. So you need to know that we are no longer, Sri Lanka is no longer in the grey list, because this slide was prepared some time ago. Right after I sent this, I realized that this Sri Lanka is no longer there. But by having this, you will know that there was something called the grey list. If I remove this, we wouldn't have been discussing grey list. I am not sure about the blacklist in the EU. Okay, right. So increasing threat from money laundering to most of the financial institutions around the world. So that is why the money laundering, anti-money laundering is very important. Then new sanction regimes in place with penalties, right, for non-compliance of anti-money laundering to mitigate the risk. Now, if you do not have penalties on people who do not follow the rules and regulation, right, then there is no point in having anti-money laundering rules and regulations if people do not follow those rules. So because of that, there are penalties that have been imposed to stop that kind of thing. Okay. Now, you know that in every bank, there is a chairman and a board of directors, right? Now, the central bank financial intelligence unit, it has certain rules and regulations that have been given to the board of directors. Now, one of the important responsibilities that the central bank has put on the board of directors is to you put in place procedures, systems and procedures for anti-money laundering. So you develop a procedure, right? In that says our bank's policy with regard to money laundering is this. Not only should they set the procedure, they will have to review that procedure regularly to see whether that is okay, is this okay, is this current, okay. So they'll have to put in place a procedure and review it regularly. Then operational level. Now the directors are not the people who go to the bank and work every day, no? Right? They are there to lay down the policy and the guideline. Then the people in the operation level, the other officers in the bank who go to the bank daily to work, now they have to manage the risk from anti-money laundering, right? How? That is to ensure that there are no suspicious transactions from when they do banking transactions. If an unknown man comes with a large amount of money, right? You don't just accept that money because you own deposits, right? Now, the business of banks is getting money from the depositors at a low cost and lending that money those who require money at a slightly higher rate. Generally, now the deposit rate is average 1 year deposit rate is about 6 or 6.5, but the lending rate is about 9.5 or 10. So the difference between these two is the bank's profit. Okay. So if a bank is short of money to do lending and increase its profits, bank will have to call for deposits. Now, when they call for deposits, they can't accept deposits from unknown people who just bring in large amounts of money without asking questions. We will come to that later, how they do it and what they have to do. Okay. Then banks and financial institutions need to take precautionary measures. You guard yourself to reduce the risk arising from anti-money laundering by refining the suspicious transactions reporting. So if you have any money coming into the bank about which you have some kind of suspicion, you need to report that to the financial intelligence unit of the central bank or the FIU. If you fail to do that, and if the central bank later on finds that the bank has not done that prime requirement, the bank can get into a problem. Okay, remember that. Any questions up to now? We have finished about almost 1 hour. During that 1 hour, I had only one question. Which I think is not enough. Either you don't understand what I'm saying or you have understood everything. One of the two. The disadvantage I have is I can't see any of you. Okay, can we go to the next slide? Or are there any questions? Right. Okay. Right. Now we are coming to a very important thing which has been introduced by the central bank, and for that matter, most of the banks all over the world is taking this very, very seriously. That is KYC. KYC, as you can see from on this slide, stands for Know Your Customer. Right? Now the central bank has given guidelines. Right? These guidelines are there to prevent or stop the banks from being used, right, intentionally or unintentionally. That is, you either knowingly or unknowingly by criminal elements for money laundering activities, right? Now, if you follow this KYC, I told you, that someone bringing in a large amount of money, all of a sudden, you're not going to accept it, no? So that is because of this KYC guidelines. Know your customer. You should know who he is, right? You don't just, because you are short of money to do your loans and advances, you do not accept money from someone unknown without asking questions, right? So the related procedures also enable banks to better understand their customer and their financial dealings. Now, we should know very well who this man or woman is coming to the bank, right? What their financial dealings are, right? If we know that, it is very easy for us to deal with the customer, right, without getting into problems. Adherence to KYC guidelines. Adherence means you follow or you comply. KYC guidelines help banks to manage their risks in a well-judged manner. Now, banking is a business where you take certain risks. Without taking risks, banks can't survive or can't exist or can't operate, right? Even when you grant a facility to a customer, a loan, when you grant a loan to a customer, there is a risk involved. What is the risk involved? The risk of non-payment, right? When you give some money to a friend, right? Would you give money to a friend without knowing how that friend is going to repay you, right? You have to be careful. Similarly, if the customer is well known to the bank by following the KYC guidelines at the time of opening accounts, banks will not get into unwanted risks because they have take a good judgment about their customer, well judged decision to open the account. So because of that, each bank will have a policy. Policy means pratipattiya, ape pratipattiya, KYC ape ganudanu karuwan handuna ganime pratipattiya mekai. Or this is the policy of our bank with regard to knowing our customer. Shall presentation in the yeah? Right, we'll let us resume our session. Right, as I told you, the banks, each bank or financial institution will have a policy on customer, knowing their customers. So the KYC policy. Sometimes some banks will display the KYC policy also in their website. So you can just visit a couple of websites of a bank just to get an idea about what they talk about with regard to their KYC. So they will say how customers will be accepted. Before that, there had been some questions which I did not see earlier. Right. There had been a question, sir, how can we identify the origin source of money, especially whether it is legal or illegal? Now, I think now part of that answer to the that question partly has been answered by now, because you do not go and accept money from unknown people, right? So if you are not sure, you will not accept money from an unknown person because you are not sure whether it is legal or illegal. Okay. Then there is another question. When some customers provide KYC details, sometimes their funds never match the details. At that time, what action we as bankers take? Now, let's say you're opening an account for a teacher. Now you get the customer to fill up the KYC forms, and in that you ask certain things like average monthly credit to your account or whatever. Now suddenly this person who has declared that he or she is receiving only 50,000 average a month brings a 10 million deposit. Now that is the question. Now that does not match the KYC details. Okay. The average salary declared in the KYC form is 50,000, whereas the amount of money received is 10 million. Now then you start asking questions, because the amount that of the deposit does not match the declared sources of income. Then by questioning, you will get to know whether the person has got this money by a sale of property or sale of a car or something like that, and you satisfy yourself that this transaction is a genuine and a legal transaction, right? Then you can accept the deposit. As long as you question the customer and obtain the required details, you are not getting into a problem. Okay. So I believe these two questions, the first question, whether it is legal or illegal. So how can we identify the origin source of money, especially whether it is legal or illegal? Now 10,000 rupees, you can ask for a copy of the deed. If it is a car, you can ask ask for proof that you have sold the car. Now generally what happens is, after you continue to deal with customers over a period of time, you can, by looking at the transactions going which are displayed in the account, you can identify, you can get a good idea about the customer, right? So the other thing is, one of the very important things is customer identification and address verification procedure. As long as you do the correct things, you will not get into a problem. If you fail to identify the customer properly, that means you are doing a big mistake for yourself. So address, to verify the address, there are certain documents that we take. One document that we take is the fixed line telephone, not a mobile number, not a mobile bill, but you ask for a bill, fixed line telephone bill. That is one, right? Other document may be your deed, the house deed, your address is there on this thing, but you generally don't, right? Or water bill, right? Sometimes your address is there in the national identity card, or else you can ask for a copy of a bank statement, the original of a bank statement with another bank, the latest one. Now the customer comes today, 12th July, you ask for the June statement. Okay. Then establishing the ultimate beneficial owner of a legal person or legal arrangement or a natural person. Now sometimes the ultimate beneficial owner is the last person who will arrive, who will get the benefit of this whatever account, right? Then the banks have some procedures to monitor transactions, right? Now, for instance, now in certain banks, you have about 200 branches. So it is not easy to keep a track of all the accounts that are being opened. So in head offices of branches, you have a separate department, anti-money laundering department. They will at random check the accounts that have been opened during the previous day, right? Especially accounts which have been opened with large amounts of money. And they will start questioning the branch, the respective branch. They will, let's say commercial bank, we see at the branch in Attidia, a large amount of money has been deposited suddenly and an account being opened. Then the officers in the commercial bank, head office, anti-money laundering department will ask the branch, okay, yesterday you have opened an account with 10 million rupees. Who is this person? Then the branch will have to provide details of that customer and satisfy the head office that what they have done is correct. Okay. Then there is another department called the risk department in banks. Risk department also plays an important role. They will ensure that the bank has not undertaken any unwanted risks when opening accounts. So they also have the authority to question branches, and when they visit branches, they will see. Now anti-money laundering department officers also, they will at random, whenever they want, they will visit a branch and go through this KYC documents and all that to see whether the branches have been doing the correct things that the head office has asked them to do. Okay, right. So risk management department, they are there to reduce the risks, ensure that the branches do not undertake unwanted risks, because that will have a lot of impacts. One thing, it can lead to a question being asked by the central bank, and if the branch has not followed the instructions, the bank being asked to pay a penalty. So you can avoid by having this risk management department and the anti-money laundering department. You can read this also in Wikipedia, right, about certain things relating to starting business relationships, right? Bribery, due diligence, all due diligence we are going to talk, right? So whatever links that I have provided, please click those links and read those articles. Then we come to customer due diligence, right? Each bank is required to do this by the central bank. Now they have to have policies and procedures put in place to get the most important information about a prospective customer, right? At the time of opening the account. Now this is the beginning when somebody comes to ask for the KYC details, and along with that, this due diligence is done. Okay, this is a process where the bank or the financial institution will find out important details about the customer who is going to open an account before the account is open, right? By doing that, the bank is reducing the risks, right? That is the initial step to prevent money laundering. So if you ask the right questions, if you look at the proper documents, address verification, NIC verification, all those things, if you do, right, you will not get into a problem. But if you just close your eyes and go and open an account for someone blindly, and if that person brings in large amounts of money and nobody is asking any question and accepting that money, there is a huge risk involved with regard to anti-money laundering. Now you would have heard about certain banks, bank accounts being produced in quotes. The CID has asked even certain higher-ups in the police for getting involved in money laundering activities. Right? This is like you, if you go to an airport, those who travel overseas, you will know that your bags are sent through a scanning machine, and in bags you are not supposed to carry liquids, knives, scissors, torch batteries, and things like that. So when you put the bag in the scanning machine, and if you find that those things will be, the passenger will be asked to throw them away. You can't even carry a bottle of water and walk through this thing. Before you go through the security, you finish your water, or else put it in the bin and go. Okay. So this customer due diligence is something like a security check-in in an airport. Okay. So begins the concept of customer due diligence begins with verifying the customer's identity, getting the national identity card, asking for the deed of the house, or asking for the fixed line telephone bill, asking for the water bill, right? You don't ask for mobile bill, because mobile bill, from that you can't, someone can give a wrong address and get a mobile, right? So the risks that are associated with the customer can be minimized, right? You lower the risks by verifying the identity. Processes should also include enhanced customer due diligence for higher risk customers and ongoing due diligence of the customer base. Not only that you check your customers before the customer opens the account, but if the customer's account shows larger transactions all of a sudden, then you need to put yourself on inquiry and find out by contacting the customer. Okay, we see some unusually large transactions. What are these transactions? Okay. So the effective customer due diligence policies, procedures and processes provide a critical framework that enable bank to comply with regulatory requirements. Regulatory requirements are the requirements that the Central Bank of Sri Lanka has put in place, right, to stop any suspicious looking activities or transactions. Okay. Any questions up to this point? I do not see any questions after 11 o'clock. It's 12 o'clock. The people who have asked questions in the chat, are they Mohammed Dilshan? Are you satisfied with the answers that I have given? Can you please speak and let me know? Fully understood? Very well understood, or still you have some queries? No further questions from you? Right, okay. I'm happy if you have understood, right? Thank you. Let's go to the next slide. CDD policies, procedures, and processes. There are critical ways, right? These are critical to a bank because they can help us in detecting and reporting unusual or suspicious transactions and potentially expose the bank to financial loss, increased expenses, or reputational risk. Now, all these things can happen if you are negligent and if you fail to detect someone depositing money earned through illegal means. So there's a potential danger, right? Because the banks may have to incur a financial loss if the central bank imposes a penalty, right? Also, sometimes maybe the bank might have to incur additional expenditure if they do not follow these rules, because it will complicate matters for them when they want to trace the customer, right? Now, if you do not do the proper investigations and open an account for a customer, after some time, that customer, you might even grant him a loan, whereas you have not properly looked into his activities or where he is residing or whatever, right? He might eventually not pay your loan also. So that will be an increased expenditure for the bank. The bank will have to write off that amount. Also, when the bank fails to do these things, the required questioning and all that, at the time of opening account, sometimes the reputation of the bank will be at stake, right? Nama කැලල් කරගන්න පුළුවන්. මෙන්න මේ බැංකුව සම්බන්ධ වෙලා මෙන්න මේ වගේ දෙයක් වෙලා තියෙනවා. There can be stories going around saying that in that bank somebody had deposited some money which that person has earned by dealing in drugs. So it's bad name for the bank. Then by having these policies, procedures, you can avoid criminal exposure from people who will use this system to do illegal things. If you have your customer due diligence policies, procedures, and processes in place, right? If they are sound, if they can be understood by the people who are working in the counters, your employees, if they very well understand this, they will not go and open accounts or accept deposits from people who are involved in illegal activities, right? So therefore, your bank will be safe. You will not get your reputation tarnished. නම කැත කරගන්නේ නැතුව කටයුතු කරගෙන යන්න පුළුවන් බැංකුවට එතකොට. Right. Definitions are also given with regard to a customer, who a customer is under the CDD rules, right? One is a customer onboarded, means customer who has been taken into the bank. Sometimes you will get customers who are falling into the category of occasional customer. Occasional customer is not someone who will do regular transaction with the bank. Right now, this definition says occasional customer, or occasional transaction, or any transaction in relation to cash or electronic fund transfer that is conducted by a person other than through an account in respect of which the person is the customer. Now, it could be a person who would come to a bank to remit some money abroad, saying that this money is for my son's education, but he will not have an account with you. But you will, by looking at the documents that he gives, he will give a letter from the university, right? My son is studying in this university. This is the letter of admission from that university. Then maybe the son's passport copy of the passport, right? He is there. So you can see this person. Then a visa. The son or daughter has got the visa. So a copy of the visa. Now this visa plus the passport plus the letter from the university are good documents for you to accept the fact that this person who is not your customer, but he wants to send money, right? It's an occasional transaction, not a regular customer who comes and daily transact. Now, there are certain people who go to the bank daily. They will go to the bank on behalf of their company. Now, you know, companies which sell various goods. Today, they sell goods. Tomorrow, they'll have to go and bank. So that person establishes a relationship with bank. Account is there. Account has been there for about 10 years. There's a person who works in that company. He goes to the bank every day to deposit money. So you know that he's a regular customer, not an occasional customer. But this particular customer that I'm talking about is someone who does not have an account with your bank. So you do not know. You have not got any KYC forms, any accounting for account opening forms and all that. He comes to do this particular transaction, right? So it's an occasional transaction to remit money abroad for the education of the son or the daughter, which is permitted by central bank. So all these documents you can see, right? And you can accept that money and make the transaction. Then one-off customers who do not access their accounts maintained at the financial institution on a regular basis for financial transactions. Either physical or form, and not form, it should be from an online account platform to access to which is provided by the financial institution. He is one-off customer. He doesn't deal with you regularly. He doesn't come to the bank physically. But, right, he might use the online banking platform. You know that people do not go to the bank. Now, for instance, I do not go to the bank to pay my water bill. I do not go to the bank to pay my electricity bill, right? I do not go to the bank to pay my television bill, mobile bill. All what I do is I sit at the computer at home and make the payments. Of course, I need to have money in the account or must have an overdraft account, right? Then I can go to the online platform. I can use my user ID, give my password, then it opens. Then payment of bills, I will pay those, right? So one-off customer is a customer who do not access their accounts maintained at the financial institution on a regular basis. For financial transactions, right? Either physical or from an online account platform, the access to which is provided by the financial institution. So if someone is not doing these things regularly, right, he could be categorized the one-off customer, occasional customer and one-off customer. There's a slight difference between the two. Read these two definitions carefully, right? A couple of times, then you will understand, right? An occasional customer shall mean any person who engages in an occasional transaction. Okay. Walk-in customer. Walk-in customer is also not a person who is having an account. A person who is not a customer. Now, a customer is someone with whom you have an account relationship mainly, right? Then only you can call him a customer, right? Someone who doesn't have an account is not a customer, right? But he might come to the bank to get some financial service, right? For instance, sometimes a person might come to the bank to pay a mobile bill, right? He doesn't have an account in the bank. He will come and pay cash. Okay. Third party customer. The walk-in customer is someone who just comes and does a transaction, goes away. He doesn't have an account. A person who is not a customer of the financial institution which he has presented himself, although the purpose of his visit is to obtain financial service. Now, going and paying a water bill or an electricity bill or a telephone bill through a bank is a financial service that a bank provides by taking a small fee. Okay. Third party customer is a person who transactions with the financial institution through a third party account in respect of which the third party is the customer of such financial institution. Okay. A person who transacts with the financial institution through a third party account in respect of which the third party is the customer of the bank, right? I go and deposit money to an account of someone because I need to pay that person to get some service, right? I am not the account holder. Okay. Third party customer is the account holder of the financial institution. Let me see whether there are any questions. Right, no questions. You don't have to worry about asking questions because the questions are always good in a lecture or a discussion because that might give the person who is doing the discussion a chance to explain something which has not been explained. How and why obtain information on customers, right? Banks and financial institutions have policies, procedures, and processes for obtaining customer information and assess the value of this information in detecting, monitoring, and reporting suspicious activity. I think that this is something that we have been talking about. Enable the bank to profile customers into high, medium, low risk categories, right? If you have obtained proper information about customers, right, you know that he is low risk customer. All the information about the customer is, everything is available. You have no doubt whatsoever. Now, for instance, a teacher, the salary comes to the account every month. He or she brings a check every month, right? You know that that lady or that gentleman is teaching at Royal College because he comes in the Royal College salary check, right? Or St. Peter's College or whatever. There may be a government servant, right? He's working in the education department or some other ministry, right? Every month he comes and deposits his salary check. You're 100% sure that this man he's the man that as shown in the details of the bank. Sometimes you might not have that type of. Now you can now consider all those people whom you know very well as low risk people, right? Even to grant them a loan, sometimes you will not ask too many questions because you know that you can look at his account every month. His salary, the same amount is credited. He draws a particular amount every month. He has a savings account into which he has deposited the excess money. So you know that he's a very honest type of person. But all cannot be treated that same way. So certain people, you will see that the transactions are not very clear to you. You can't make a very good assessment about that person. So you will think that this man is a bit of a high risk customer. So similarly, the people who do not belong to both this thing, the lowest risk or the highest risk, will be people with medium risk. And to predict with relative certainty the type of transactions in which the customer is likely to engage in. So when you know whether the customer is low risk, high risk, or medium risk, you can have a basic idea about the type of transactions that they are likely to engage in. You know that this person, the low risk person, will not put you into a embarrassing position by bringing in a large deposit about which he cannot provide information, right? So you avoid potentially suspicious transactions by having all these KYC and CDD procedures in place. Enhanced customer due diligence. Enhanced means more than the normal. Enhanced due diligence is required where the customer and product or the service combination is considered to be at a greater risk. Example of high risk situations are where the bank does not meet the customer face to face. When the customer is not coming to the bank, and if you happen to deal with that type of a customer without seeing him or talking to him, there is a danger, right? You can't totally say we will not open any account if the customer doesn't come here, because sometimes you have to open accounts for people who are employed abroad, right? So you take all the precautions by asking for the passport copy, asking for the visa, asking for the employment details, asking for salary particulars. All those things you take in order to reduce your risk, right? So you do little more than what you do when you meet a person face to face. Okay. Examples of high risk situations are where the bank does not meet the customer. Now, a person who has gone for employment abroad, you don't see him, no, right? Until he comes down for a holiday and comes and meet you, you won't see him face to face. So all what you have is some documents, scanned copies, right? Also, when the bank deals with a politically exposed person, now this is an important thing, politically exposed person. We will go and see what these politically exposed persons are. Politically exposed persons, or PEPs, we call it PEP, in relation to politically exposed persons or their family members or close associates, right? Someone is a politician, right? So their family members also, or they are very close people who very closely associate with those people, are called politically exposed persons. It could be a family member or it could be a very close friend of this politician. Then the bank, the higher management, senior officers, corporate management of the bank, right? They will give approval, right, to enter into or to continue business with that kind of a customer, right? Is that understood? I think we can have another description of the customer. Means an individual who is entrusted with prominent public functions. Now, politicians are individuals who are entrusted with prominent public functions, either domestically or by a foreign country, or in an international organization, and includes a head of a state or a government, a politician, a senior government officer, right? A judge or someone like that, a military officer, senior executive of a state-owned corporation, right? Government or autonomous body, but does not include the middle rank or junior rank individuals, not the people who are holding lower grade positions. Okay, I think this gives the type of people who will be categorized, who will be or who can be categorized as politically exposed persons. Politically exposed persons, their immediate family members means, immediate family member means the spouse, husband or wife, children, right? And their spouses or partners, parents, siblings, and their spouses and grandchildren and their spouses. So it's a bigger this thing. You don't have, I don't think that there'll be, I have never seen in any other question papers you being asked who is a immediately family member or whatever, right? These definitions are for your information, for you to get a better understanding of this concept of KYC and CDD. A natural person, close associate, a natural person having a joint beneficial ownership of legal entities or legal arrangements or any other close business relationships, and a legal person or legal arrangement whose beneficial owner is a natural person and is known to have been set up for the benefit of such person or in his or his immediate family members. Don't worry much about these things. You don't have to by heart these things, because these definitions are not coming in the form of questions for your exam. Suspicious transactions reporting. You should know what is a suspicious transaction. They are transactions that are reasonable grounds to suspect that they are related to a money laundering offense, right? Now that type of thing you are required to disclose to the financial intelligence unit of the central bank, right? So if you have an account, if you know that someone is using an account to conduct an illegal business, right? It must be reported, must be reported. Otherwise, you can get into a problem. Because if you are found guilty of that under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, the fine will be 100,000, or you might get a jail term also. So don't think that you can just close your eyes and open an account for someone, right? If you are working in a bank, you will be liable to pay 100,000 fine, or you should be ready to go to jail. Willful blindness. Willful blindness means you know very well that this man is up to mischief, or he is a person who is no good, right? If you are found guilty of that offense, the fine will be 500,000, or the jail term will be 2 years. Now, I think you should look at this website, FIU website. This gives you all the information. Okay? Reporting institutions, publications, everything is here. Right? The Financial Transaction Reporting Act is here. If you like to, you can read these things. But for purpose of exam, I don't think that you need to go and read, waste your time on all that. Okay. No questions after the last question. This is no longer available, I think. Then the other thing what I told you earlier is this article. If you read this article, which was very recently published on the 3rd of July, right? It's about only 1 week old. Read this article very well, right? What is money laundering? Explained here. The criminals who are making huge amounts of money through criminal activities, including drug trafficking, arms smuggling, people smuggling, security frauds, robbery, and various other crimes, want to show the proceeds. Proceeds means the money that they have got are from a legitimate. They want to show that this money is all legal money or activity. This process is called laundering of dirty money or illicit proceeds. If you read this, everything is explained, right? The placement, layering, and integration that we have been discussing earlier are very well explained in this. Okay, in the slide I have put only limited information. Then, what are the responsibilities of banks under anti-money laundering? Know your customer procedure is there. How to establish customers' identity. These are the information that you get, right? But now it is crucial the financial institutions do a detailed interview with the prospective client to get the following information. I told you exact location is important, occupation is important, what type of transactions, everything. Customer due diligence is there, right? Corporate KYC, when they open an account for a company, what are the things that are required to be looked into? Non-compliance, what happens if you do not follow the instruction, right? Combating money laundering in Sri Lanka, what are the acts, right? Then we here listing of Sri Lanka as a high risk country, grey list, blacklist, right? That is also spoken about in this article. What is important? Why is it important to Sri Lanka? And Sri Lanka's achievement, I told you that in 2017, we were identified as a strategic anti-money laundering and CFT deficiencies, country with CFT deficiencies. So if you read this article, I think that article has plenty of information for you to answer any question on anti-money laundering when it comes to your examination. So we have come to the end of today's session. I have about 2 minutes if there are any questions. Are there any questions? Dinetma Pereira joined only now when the class is about to be over. Okay, if there are no further questions, we will stop this session for today. And if there are any questions, you could even send the questions to the course coordinator, or else please note down my email address, which is nlucky. Shall I write it on the board? Can all of you see that? NLUCKY 7000 in figures at yahoo.com. If there are any questions, please don't feel shy. Send the questions by email. I will definitely send you a response. Okay, thank you. So we will stop the class now. Thank you very much, all, for participating. Next time when we have a lecture, please join on time. Thank you. I'll stop the recording also now.